This morning, the Trump administration is facing a major legal hurdle in the U.S. Supreme Court today since launching its global trade war.
Without tariffs, without our being able to use tariffs freely, openly, and in every way, we would suffer tremendously from a national security standpoint.
So the administration is going up against small businesses and groups of states who argue most of U.S. President Trump's tariffs are illegal because they are not a threat to national security, as he claims, and they should be struck down. If the court agrees, the administration could be forced to pay upwards of $90 billion. To explain what this means for us here in Canada, I'm joined this morning by Carlo Dade, Director of International Policy and the new North America Initiative at the School of Public Policy at the University of Calgary. Thanks for being with us this morning.
Good morning.
First off, what arguments are being presented to the Supreme Court?
Well, essentially, the arguments are that the president has taken power delegated to the executive by Congress. Remember, the ability to tax, which is what a tariff is, resides solely with the Congress. But Congress has delegated some of this power over the decades to the president to impose restrictions to limit trade during national emergencies. So the debate at the Supreme Court is the president following the rules and expectations under the delegation of power from Congress, or has he exceeded them or doing things that weren't in line with what was intended with the delegation of power from Congress?
A lot of this comes down to interpretation of that law and what constitutes a national emergency or a threat. Two lower courts have already ruled against the Trump administration. So how is this administration defending their tariffs, and how much support do they have?
Sure. Well, support the public is debatable. You can look at polls. Support within the Supreme Court is the most interesting point here. And it appears in talking to colleagues and analysts in the States, most of the analysts are split. The Economist, which has a betting algorithm or AI for Supreme Court decisions, thinks the court will side with the president and overturn the lower courts. So it's really just a toss-up here.
You know, we can't underscore the way that President Donald Trump has wielded tariffs. They are his hammer. It is how he has brought countries around the world into line, into accordance with his America First ideology. So if the Trump administration loses, what does that mean for ongoing trade wars?
Well, it's a significant change. Let's take the case in Canada. The president actually has about 5 powers or 5 rules, regulations, laws, etc., that delegate powers. The one that he's been using is called the International Emergency Powers Act, or IEPA. Mm-hmm. These have essentially been turned by the president into anywhere, any item, any amount, any time, any reason I choose tariffs. As long as I declare an emergency, I've got carte blanche to tweet that I'm going to impose tariffs on someone tomorrow, and it happens. For Canada, if the president loses this power, he's forced into other powers like the national security tariffs, steel and aluminum, with which we're familiar. Mm-hmm. If that happens and president loses his anywhere, anytime, any item at the drop of a tweet tariffs, and he moves to national security tariffs, it's a significant change for Canada. It's a diminishment and a shift in the threat. The threat is no longer national, it becomes regional, because the national security tariffs are limited to specific groups of items. So you can't tariff everything all at once. You have to start an investigation, hold hearings, and you can only focus on groups of items like copper, wind turbines, truck parts. And for Canada, that turns the threat that anyone in the nation can wake up and find tariffs on their product to, well, we have to look at the list of these emergency tariffs, right, and are my products on that list? For Alberta, we're not on that list. For Ontario or Manitoba, that list is essentially you.
Yes.
So the threat for Canada changes, in our negotiation tactic changes, and it becomes a question eventually of, I think, maybe national unity. How are we going to negotiate when the tariff impacts aren't faced by all of Canada, but only certain parts?
It's a good question. Listen, the decision isn't expected until next summer. So what can we expect, Carlo, in the meantime?
I wouldn't hold too clearly or too closely to the idea that the decision won't come until next summer. Analysts said that, this wouldn't reach the Supreme Court until next year. Several analysts were shocked that the Supreme Court moved so quickly. So I would say this has moved more quickly than expected at every turn in the legal path in the U.S. I would expect a decision more quickly. I think countries will start to reconsider making concessions to the Americans if the anywhere, anytime tariffs off the table. And for Canada, we need to think about how we respond to the potential shift. Also, businesses in Canada need to think about refunds and lining up the paperwork, talking to U.S. counterparts to make sure that the paperwork's in place should tariffs be refunded and Canadians are, because of agreements or other issues, in line for refunds. But we really need to shift our thinking. If the president loses his anywhere, anytime, any reason at the drop of a tweet tariffs and is forced to move to the more cumbersome national security.
Yeah. Trade negotiations via posting on Truth Social. Carlo Day, Director of International Policy at the School of Public Policy and the North America Initiative at the University of Calgary. I know it is an early morning there for you in Alberta. We appreciate your time.
Thanks. I'm back to bed.
Okay, great. If you like that video, make sure to subscribe to the Your Morning YouTube feed, where you can find all kinds of new content posted every weekday morning.